Turn It On, the Level 42 fan podcast, is in no way affiliated with the band. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are solely the speaker's own.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Turn It On, the Level 42 fan podcast. We are here with our typical trio from here in the U.S., here to talk the time away with all things Level 42. The convivial Mikey Payne. Please say hello, Mikey.
I've been waiting 42 seconds to say howdy.
The irrepressible Winston Walker, Windman with many faces and many names. Please say hello.
Hello.
And I'm Bob Considine, also saying hello to all the Level 42 fans out there, both past, current, and future from all over the world. We very much appreciate you being here. Guys, this is actually the first podcast we've recorded since the actual podcast launched on all those great podcast platforms and our YouTube page and our Facebook page. And I think we all just want to thank everyone who has commented, liked, or followed the podcast. I know I've been pleasantly surprised by the feedback. I don't know how you guys feel, but speak up, because I think you guys have a great appreciation too.
Yeah, Bob, I'm just as excited to have it out like you guys are, and it's been nice to hear. It's been finally nice to actually say something about it, because we've been sitting on this for months.
Yep.
And we've heard it for months ourselves, so it's really nice to get out there and really been just really amazed at the feedback that we've received, and let's go forward. It's been awesome.
Yep. I know Win, he always plays it cool, but he has been downright giddy.
Yeah, he has.
As I am want to be. It's really cool. I mean, it's nice that people seem to enjoy it.
Yep.
And, eventually we'll get to the point where people will tell us that we're idiots and we don't know what we're talking about. But, that's part of the fun, I guess. It's
inevitable. But I do think, we look forward to doing more with the Level 42 fans. Obviously, this is a community who just wants to celebrate the band. And, we'll be sure. We've been talking about getting the fans more involved with the show soon. More on that coming up. But in the meantime, if you haven't already, just give us a follow or rating or a comment on all those podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify, so more people can become aware of the show.
Good point.
So before we get to our Mark King related topics today, guys, it's been a little while since we recorded the podcast, so I'm interested to hear what from the Level 42 oeuvre, or Irv, as they say in the UK, has invaded your craniums of late. Win, what's been in your mind?
Full disclosure, I have really not, since the last time we recorded, I really haven't, other than listening to Changes 2, I really haven't jumped into any Level 42. But I have been listening to a bunch of stuff that's somewhat Level 42 related, because I was talking to Raymond Prasad the other day, and he had gone to, was it Ronnie Scott's? Is that the place in London? Yeah. So he'd gone there for a gig. He wasn't happy with where he was sat at the venue. He had waited online for a long time and then got like a crappy seat.
Right.
And I said, they reminded me of the Bottom Line in New York. And I said, it's kind of like the same size venue. I said, but I remember getting there early, and you could always, the way that venue was laid out, you had a good view of the stage from anywhere, whether you were right at the front or the back or the left, far left or right, the way it was set up. And it made me think, and I told him, I said, you know what? I believe that's the place where Level 42 played their first New York gig, way back in the day. And there's a great recording of it that's floating around. And it made me think of, I started reminiscing about, wow, I saw tons of great bands there. And I remember seeing John Schofield 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
Dave Weckl solo, Chick Corea's Electric Band, the Japanese jazz band Hiroshima.
Yeah.
And so I started like, I haven't listened to this stuff in forever. So I kind of started going down that rabbit hole of John Schofield, Chick Corea, Hiroshima, stuff like that. So I kind of been firing all of that up on my iPhone, listening to it.
Okay. Mikey, can you help us out with something more level related?
Close. Oh, two songs kind of jump out at me recently. As you search on YouTube, it always has suggestions on the side of
Right.
something that you might like. And I saw a band cover a track off of the Guaranteed album called "If You Were Mine."
Yes.
And I personally thought they did a hell of a job with the track, making it kind of a duet.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
I think they're from Scandinavia, but if they're not, I apologize.
I think you're right.
It's always interesting when someone does a level 42 cover.
Yep.
And in my opinion, if you're going to do a cover, you either do it just as good as the original or better. And I actually thought they met the mark on that. No pun intended.
I saw that too.
But level 42 related track that I've definitely listened to at least twice this week because it came up randomly twice was off of Phil Gould's Watertight album, and a track that Mike did with him, "Color of My Pain."
Right.
And
that's a big surprise.
Yeah.
Mr. Pain.
It's dismissed as coincidence.
Plug. No, it is not written about me. And there's another song in there that just escapes me, but it's also incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's been in my ears. So yeah.
Right. So
what about
the way
you?
these songs come to me is, I listen if I'm on a treadmill or something, or having a hard time going to sleep. I just put my iPhone on, and whatever comes on comes on. And sometimes it just goes through me through osmosis, and other times I'm like, wow, I never noticed that, or this is something special. Just hits you, So for me, it's also a Phil Gould song, Mike. It's the title track from Phil's 2021 Beautiful Wounds album. It's a song that features Diane Winter on vocals. It kind of starts off with these like really plaintive chords by Phil, and it opens up to this groove that's got this like mysterious little piano figure, and the lyrics are just a killer. I actually typed them out because it's like, Phil's a genius writer. We don't talk about it too much, and I'm sure we will in the future, but it's like, let me take a look at those beautiful wounds, the kind that heal but not too soon. Let me see those scars all down your back. What they reveal is what I lack. I don't know the intent of Phil's lyrics there, but I take it as whatever you've been through or survived, kind of strengthens your resolve and your character. But just a really,
absolutely,
yeah.
That's what I kind of drew from the lyrics too, to be honest, Bob. Sorry to interrupt.
And there's another song off that album that kind of has the same theme called Body Blows, really another good song. I don't have the lyrics in front of me. It's kind of like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger thing. So yeah, really great song with a really solid album by Phil that I'm sure we'll spend some later time on in the future. The other song I'd say is a little more familiar, but a really different arrangement about it. And I'm talking about the live version of Leaving Me Now from the Sirens Tour Live. This version actually starts with the piano solo that always comes at the end of the song. But Mike's playing it on a Rhodes. And then Mark starts singing the lyrics with just the Rhodes at the beginning. And then finally the drums and the other instruments kick in at the chorus. So it's like really unusual. And the horns are great on it. They actually replicate, those familiar Mark King ad-libs during the end of the song, Dakota. So rather than Mark singing, it's the yeah, yeah, yeahs. It's the horns playing them. It's really different. I never, kind of noticed it. They never did it before. They never did it since, but it's a really great great take on Leaving Me Now. I don't know if you guys remember it, but
I do not at all. And now I've got to pull that out when we get done here.
Yeah, it's really killer.
Bob, wasn't that the same concert too that they kind of redid Tracy as well?
I think you're right, Mike.
Yeah.
I love when they do different arrangements on songs that they've been playing forever.
Yeah,
That's
I think they need
way.
to for their own sanity.
Yeah, I just recall reading something recently where someone said that they went to a show with someone and the person was complaining that they didn't do the songs like on the album.
oh my.
And that always like kind of bugged. I was like, why don't I have the album? I don't want to hear them just play the record like exactly the same,
Right.
Like I always enjoy hearing so, and it was interesting for me to hear that someone was like, that's what they didn't like they didn't play it exactly like it's on the record. Like I was expecting it to be exactly the arrangement on the vinyl or the CD or whatever, and that disappointed them. So
Well, I know this could be a whole other pod topic, but I think my favorite rearrangement of a track live is the Guaranteed era of Children Say.
Oh, totally agree.
That intro alone and the way they end it. Magic and Gould. Yeah.
Totally agree, Mike. The intro, one time, probably in the, early 2000s, I actually tried to record that intro the way they did it off of, doing MIDI and recording the bass over it. It actually came out it's not impossible to play, but it's just such a cool way to kick into the song. Then Gary kind of plays that drum fill to kick into the groove. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
And the horns too are great on that. I think they were the Hendrix horns at that point for the Guaranteed tour, right?
Yeah. Yep. I think they're the Jurassic horns now, but that's okay. We're all Jurassic.
Actually, they're not. They get the clunge horns, I think they're called, aren't they?
I have no idea. I can't keep up with that stuff. Honestly. Like, and it's been a few names that always made me wonder, like, did they just get on stage one day and Mark just made something up and then it sticks for till the next tour?
Yeah.
I wonder what he calls the current outfit.
Yeah, I don't know. As long as they answer, that's all he cares about, right?
True. Yeah.
That's
I really want to revisit the Phil's first solo album because Innocent Abroad was always my favorite song on that album.
Me too.
Thank you, Gwen. That was the one I couldn't think of. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recall the first time I heard that album was in the parking lot of a Vegas casino. I had met a few friends, Zach Nilsson being one of them, rest in peace. He had the album and I didn't have it. And we went out in the parking lot and he said, "Oh, I got in the car," and he played it and we listened to a bunch of tunes, So it was really great. So, and looking back, it's like, oh, it's kind of special that I heard that the first time through him.
Yeah.
And we used to go, he had a band and, he had he moved to Vegas from LA and we kind of got together quite a bit, went to a bunch of shows, and then he was drumming in a band. So I got to see him play a lot, but that was a cool night, because that was the first, I just was lazy, I guess, and hadn't bought the album right away. And I was like, "Oop, gonna go home and order that sucker tonight."
Yeah. Right. Definitely rest in peace, Zach. Great Level 42 fan, great guy.
Yeah, I met him once and he was a very nice fella. Yeah,
very famous guy himself too. His father, Harry Nilsson.
Yeah, that blew me away because I knew Zach for a long time, years, right. And I did not know that. And one time we were out in LA and we went to his house, and he was showing me his music room. He had his electronic drums set up and keyboards and all this kind of stuff, computer, and and he's like, "Yeah, his pictures on the wall of his dad. His pictures of my dad. Whatever."
John Lennon, right?
And I'm like, "Why is your dad hanging out with the Beatles?" And then I realized, because I knew who his dad was, I just didn't know that was his dad. Like I didn't.
He never just told you, like.
No. He never did, and it was really funny that I saw it. And I'm like, "Oh, Harry has the same name as you, last name, and that's when I put it together." And because it just wasn't something that he was going around telling about. It's like pictures of dad, winning Grammys. and stuff. So it was just hilarious to find out that way by being in his house in LA and like seeing pictures on the wall. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's my dad." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Your dad with John Lennon. Your dad with the Beatles. Your dad winning Grammys. Your dad with, you know." And it's like I'm sensing a theme here. So
You know, when Zach was ill, I seem to recall Paul McCartney putting something on social media wishing him well.
I do not know about that.
Oh my God!
That wouldn't surprise me, though.
I'm like, geez, this guy knows Paul McCartney. You know, it's like, God, it's crazy.
Well, I imagine his childhood was filled with the who's who of that time and that era. I mean,
well, I think the story was Harry was very good friends with John Lennon during, you know, I guess his weekend away from Yoko, which turned out to be about 2 years. So they were very tight at that period. But yeah, it's a shame he's not here, you know.
Yeah, he was a really nice guy. And the first time I ever heard from him, I think it was him that sent me this tape of a cover he had done of Dream Crazy. And and was talking to him about MIDI and this goes way back to the 90s.
He's the guy who turned me on. We were hanging out in Vegas one time, a bunch of us, and we had gone to this Peppermill Lounge one night. And he told me, he's like, "Hey man, you know what? You heard about MP3s?" I'm like, "No, what's that?" And that's how I found out about the MP3 technology. And then he was like, "Oh yeah, I got this one. I'm going to send it to you." And it was like the what was that animated Fox show? It was a sci-fi show.
Futurama.
Futurama. He was like, "Oh, the theme song to this show is awesome," and he sent me an MP3 of it. And that's how I learned about Futurama, by the way. So, yeah, he turned me on to a lot of, you know, music and tech and stuff like that. So cool dude.
So let's kind of get to the main course today, guys. The first topic I was hoping we could discuss is Mark King's best vocal performances. You know, I think when you're one of the world's kind of greatest bass players, and the vocals kind of get second focus. But the fact of the matter is, Mark really grew to be one hell of a singer. If you go back to those early instrumental days when they first started, and he was kind of the reluctant, "Oh, I guess I'll sing," you know, instead of bringing somebody new in, and just the growth of him as a vocalist. I wanted to get your take on maybe, you know, top 3 songs that really resonate for you when you think of Mark King, the vocalist. I'll start with you, Mikey.
Let's see if I can go in chronological order. I think for me, the first song would be from the Level 42 album, "Why Are You Leaving?" Immediately with the bass intro of that song. But what really struck me the most was his vocals. You know, he could definitely sing. This wasn't someone trying to sing. He could really hit these notes. And that's a great song. I wish he'd play it again live. Second track for me would have to be "Leaving Me Now," especially there in the bridge. And I noticed from the album to the live version, they had to transpose it down a few, because anyone would have to do that.
Yeah.
And the third track escapes me.
I never heard it.
It's off that secret album. I wasn't supposed to say anything.
Bootleg demo. I'm going to introduce Mikey to this thing called pen and paper on our next podcast.
Yes.
Well,
and
Mike, I'm going to just go back to your first selection. Maybe it'll come to your third.
Yeah.
When we talk about "Why Are You Leaving?" and that's such an early song for them, and it's just such a credit to Mark when you think of, you know, a willingness to just do it. I remember, you know, I had the pleasure of being able to do an interview with him once, and we talked about the challenges of playing and and singing at the same time. And he's like, you just have to do it. That's it. That's all. It's just that simple for him. And at that point, that band really doesn't know what they are at that point. Are they going to become hit makers? Are they going to be an instrumental band? Return to Forever influenced, and that's a song. I mean, that's a ballad.
Yeah.
And so was Love Meeting Love. But you can even see the growth from him as a vocalist from Love Meeting Love to Why Are You Leaving? I just think that's a good call by you on that one.
Yeah, he just, I know he was percussionist and played the bass, and then, they kind of got around to finding out who's going to sing for our band in the early days. And I remember them saying they tried different people and they just wanted to do it themselves. But what a lucky, to have a voice like that to be able to jump into. The third track was Bitter Moon off of Mark King's one man album.
I agree. I mean, I think Boone wrote the lyrics to that.
Yeah.
But that's a good call too, because it is a very high range in the chorus. And I know when he used to do it live, when he was doing the solo stuff, it was kind of hit or miss, I think, sometimes when he would do that song. But to his credit, he didn't change the key. So good on him.
No, he didn't. And I remember seeing that live at the Wolverhampton gig, and he had a cold or the flu that night, and he actually belted it out, and it was perfect that night. So
how'd you know he had a cold?
He told us.
I know, because we all got sick. Remember? Mine was probably from too much cider back then. From him. No, I mean, we all. I remember. Was it the Wolverine where we listened to the sound check?
Yeah,
because I remember Carl, our good buddy Carl Mueller, was like, I think we had gone to pick up tickets or whatever, before the gig, and then I was like, let's, Carl's looking around. It's like, it looks like this door is open on the side there, and we all went inside, and they came out, and Mark came out, and a few people, and he literally was like, hey, after this, we're going overseas. We got all our shots. We're kind of under the weather right now, so you guys might get sick. And like, we didn't care.
Right.
Take pictures, do all that stuff, and then we all got home and we were all sick. So, and it was worth it. It was totally worth it.
Just a little bit of a sidetrack. I know you Wolverhampton show. I think the show before it was help me out, guys.
Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Shepherd's Bush. So I was at the Shepherd's Bush one, but I didn't go to Wolverhampton because I wasn't cool enough. But
you didn't think ahead. That's what it really was.
But the thing is that we just celebrated the 25th anniversary of being there for those shows in 1999. And it seems it's almost like a dream, that whole trip for me. I mean, it was just so weird,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it was. Because Level 42 was kind of out of commission at that point.
Right.
And it kind of brought everyone kind of back together again with, a new kind of direction that Mark was taking at that time. Plus, it was a lot cheaper to travel back then, too, than it is now.
Oh, yeah, that was the best time of my life, because living in Manhattan, they were doing these tours around Thanksgiving in America. So everyone's coming into America, not going out. So flights were cheap, hotels were cheap.
Yeah.
It was the best thing. I mean, because it was so cheap. It was like literally I was leaving New York on a Thursday and coming back on a Monday, just taking a weekend trip to see a show. And I wasn't rich at all that time, but it was just, it was really cheap.
Yeah, we supported the World's End pub for like 3 years in November there in Camden, I think. So yeah.
I think for me, because I was only there like for 3 days, and it's just such a blur. It's my first time in London. I'm meeting all these people that I've written to or even spoken to, but I hadn't met. And it's just crazy. There's names to faces, and then oh my gosh, I'm going to see Mark King this close. You know, it just for a Yankee, a New York guy, New Jersey guy to go over there and see that, it was really something special. You know,
it certainly was, especially with all those people. When we have those pictures like outside, it's like 40 odd people in a picture together, and then we all go and like, oh, let's go to Chinatown and get something to eat. And I'm thinking, how are we going to get sat in a restaurant with 40 to 50 people? And there literally were like two places across the street from each other that could fit all of us in there.
Yep, I remember that restaurant.
Yeah, and I remember like me, you, and Greg. We were kind of like in the kids' room, like a little room off the main room that most of the people were in. But it was a lot of fun. But I was just like,
I put a birthday party hat on. I remember
that was a great time,
and we blew out the cake. All right, Win, what about you? I know you're Mr. Instrumental guy, but best vocal performances from Mark.
So I think when you brought this up a few days ago, I was joking by saying Beezer won. But when I thought about it, I guess some of the songs that would, for me, are I always like Lying Still. I like I Want Eyes.
Yeah, well, that's like Phil Gould's favorite Mark delivery, right?
I do not know, but it's one of my favorites. The other thing being, I always like The Kinder Eye.
Oh, good one. I almost put that on my list.
And an extra one would be, okay, this is kind of a guilty thing because I love Out of Sight, Out of Mind. I like the vocal performance, but it really ups the level, the harmony on the chorus with him and Mike.
Yep.
And obviously maybe Wally, maybe Phyllis singing as well. But that, to me, that kind of just, that takes that song to another level. Geez, there we go again.
No, you're right. That is a good call.
I
totally hear what you're saying on the harmonies on that are just great. I mean, it's a beautiful melody line to begin with.
Because I'm thinking of that song, that is probably one of my favorite guitar licks from Boone Gould of all time in that song. Because if you listen to that 12-inch, you can really hear that guitar stand out. And it's just so perfect.
The 12-inch is great. You can hear everything, every part, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to listen to that, like pulling each piece apart from it. It's great. I'm going to give you 3. And it's funny how we both come around to the lighter songs, you know, Kinder Eye, kind of ballady, and Bitter Moon, as Mikey was saying. The first one I'm going with is Romance off the Forever Now album.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a more mellow Mark, you know, and he sings low, he sings high. And I just thought it's a new, a kind of new shade to his voice, if you will. It's kind of different. He's not belting it out. But it's just something mellow about it. I like his range on it, and it's a great delivery.
Yeah, it's kind of a relaxed and velvety kind of vocal.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Yep. And you mentioned the one-man album, Mikey, with Bitter Moon. For me, I was going with If I Had Something, which is a really deep track.
Definitely. Yeah. Good call there.
That's sort of like a power ballad kind of thing. Like that song, like almost orchestral. Like you could see a big band playing that song or hear a big band playing that song.
That whole album really is, you know, if you like, it's Mark as singer-songwriter, you know, it's almost like a Sting album in a way. It's, there's not a note of slap on it. And, you know, we could spend all day on that album, but it is really a departure for him as an artist. I think it's definitely songs first, you know, and Boone's lyrics are just killer throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that song, If I Had Something, I rarely hear it, but every time I do, when Mark kind of hits the high note at the end, I forget if the word is, I think it's B or free, but he just nails it. It's like, wow.
Yeah, he goes into probably the highest falsetto he's gone into on that I remember. Yeah.
Yep. And last one, another kind of track we don't talk about or hear about much, Retroglide, the title track off Retroglide. That's more of a belter for me, but I love the way he delivers it. He hits some high registers in that song. There's a lot of, I guess, layered Mark vocals, not much of Mike Linda on that entire album, really. And maybe Mark gets a little bit flack from some fans because they want to hear Mike and the combined vocals. But his singing is really great on that song, and underrated song.
Yeah, it's look forward to discussing that album down the road, especially now that it's been 16 years, if I'm doing it right in my head.
Gosh.
God, yeah.
I think it's older than that. No, 2006. What's the math? 24 minus 6 is 18 years.
Yeah, this is. I'm really glad this isn't a math podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's do subtraction. Addition's tricky, pal.
Yeah, I did not give that album a fair chance.
You didn't, huh?
Not at all.
And have you ever gone back to it and said,
not at all?
Really?
And I really should. And honestly, it was a weird time in my life when I got that. I was living in Vegas, and I think I had just gotten there or something, and it was just weird. Like felt like I really couldn't concentrate on anything but work, and then I kind of like never went back to it, And it's like there's so much stuff by them that I really love, but it's I feel like it's going to be one of those things like, as a kid, I didn't like this particular thing. Like for one thing, I didn't like yogurt until I was like 30 years old. No, probably late 20s. Because I thought it was something that it wasn't, and then I tried it again, like I love it, and so I feel like I'm going to listen to it and be like, damn, I just kind of wasted 20 years not listening to this album, And I don't expect it's going to be like my new favorite,
right?
But maybe it's going to make me want to listen to it more often.
There are some songs I listen to constantly off that album, and one of them is Sleep Talking, just because the bass is just ridiculous.
Yeah, see, I'm familiar. I'm definitely familiar with that.
Well, we're talking. Oh, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, we were talking about vocals. All I Need is a really good vocal
that's what
from that album.
That was kind of my fourth choice for today.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. That could be in my top 10 level 42 songs ever, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. It's always a B-side, songs that surprise us.
Yeah.
or the tracks down, towards the end.
When I hear that song, I hear Boone's lyrics, and they're, the whole idea of, it's got to come to me, but it's looking back to your past, and going back to a time, and maybe when you were happy or something like that. It's a pretty powerful song.
I would say this: I do remember really liking "Rooted."
Yeah, that's a good song.
So now it's going to be. And part of the problem too is I don't have that album. I don't have access to the actual CD anymore.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I still have a lot of stuff that I left in Vegas that, with a buddy of mine, where it was in storage. So, it's like, I'm not going to buy this again because technically I own it, but it's not something that I get in my mind. Go, okay, well let me find it on Spotify or something like that.
Yeah.
I do have all the stuff ripped to my But I think if I had a physical copy of it, like a lot of the other discs, the mainstay albums, maybe I might pop it in.
Well, it's funny when one of the main criticisms of that album from fans was it wasn't produced correctly. It was either overcompressed or undercompressed. I couldn't remember, but they wound up.
I remember those.
Yeah, so they wound up. I think the version that's on.
They remastered it.
Yeah, they remastered it, and it doesn't sound the same. It definitely is a difference. You can tell.
Yeah, so I remember because when I had first moved to Vegas, I was staying with my mom and my sister. And so I really, I think maybe I had that and I ripped the CD and I was listening to it on my phone. So I really didn't have a lot of complaints because even if it didn't sound top notch, I probably would have chalked it up to, I just ripped the CD to MP3 format to put on my phone, that kind of thing. But I remember a lot of people, with the over compression and yada, yada, yada. But I know for sure it definitely got remastered. So,
right.
Well, that's interesting though.
Yeah, I remember getting a lecture from another late friend of ours, Don Zip. Proceeded to talk. We spoke about once a week, and I remember one of those phone calls. The whole call was trying to educate me about overcompression or undercompression, whatever it was.
Right.
But he bless his heart, he was not happy.
Yeah, Don Z was an audiophile for sure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, rest in peace. We got to stay alive and healthy, guys. Jeez.
I know.
Yeah.
And just one story for Retroglide, that album for me. I actually had the CD version. I still have it, but I had the booklet, and it was signed by Mark. I think Mike may have signed it at some point, and I left it in my car one day, and I left the sunroof open accidentally, and it rained.
Oh.
Oh, that's
and
not
I
good.
don't have it anymore.
It's all a blur.
All right. Next and final topic on our Mark King related show today. And again, it goes back to him being that ace bass player. He's made a history.
Ace of bass.
Yes. He's made obvious history with famous bass lines like those in Love Games, Lessons in Love, Mr. Pink, and countless others that everyone loves. But I'm asking you guys to find the most underrated bass lines by Mark King. These guys, these are the ones that either strike you somehow or just really serve the song in your opinion, or maybe they're difficult to play, but they're not necessarily, the flying thumb machine. I think I'll go with Winston on this one. No, let's go with Mikey. We went with Win the last time.
One that sticks out in my head is probably uploaded on YouTube 15 years ago. I think 2008. A fan uploaded a video of a live gig of Mark playing "The Pursuit of Accidents," and it's I think it's on YouTube under Mark King bass solo Sheffield.
Okay,
and it gets a real heavy bass tinny sound in it, but the way it's recorded, Mark is just thrashing the hell out of this bass.
Yeah.
And it just, that song in particular, it's so intensive. And I just thought it was one of the best moments, not professionally filmed, of him playing the bass guitar.
Yep.
It just stands out for me.
All right. So what else you got, Mike?
Hot Water.
Now, is that underrated?
That's the tricky word.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, if you think of how, if you ask U.S. fans, they don't know it. So, yeah, in that sense, it's underrated.
Yeah, I thought that was underrated.
Okay.
This is I can already hear some people going, "Oh my gosh, you said this one too," but I think it's because it's not as public as the rest of the Level 42 albums, and that's Mark King's Influences album, his very first track on that, The Essential.
Oh my god.
Oh
Um,
man, yeah.
It's
See, I didn't even think of solo stuff. Damn you, Mike.
I just especially again only not because he played it live, but when he did it live at Ronnie Scott's or his friends in Soho,
Oh
you
man,
know,
great CD.
I mean, playing that live, it just was like, come on now, it doesn't get any better than that. And it still people, associate Mark King with Level 42. It's a shame that album in particular didn't get, I think, the justice that it deserved. But just my
I love that
opinion.
album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a great album. Like that would be, yeah, that would still be my favorite solo effort by him.
The album or the
it's
song
different.
influences?
The album.
Mm-hmm.
That whole album, I like that whole album because it's very eclectic. It's definitely jazz fusiony stuff, and it's all over the place.
Yeah, I think, guys, we'll probably spend a podcast talking about that album this year at some point, as I think it's the 40th anniversary of Influences. So none of that all made you feel.
Oh my
ancient.
goodness, 40 years! Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hot Water for me, I don't think of. All I think of is the synth bass, unless he plays it live. On the record, I don't hear him. Like for me, I don't think of that as him playing bass. To me, that synth, that sequence part, just kind of overshadows everything else.
Yeah, I think he doubles it. And there's definitely raw live bass in the solo in the bridge. But yeah, I hear your point. I mean, deny the synth bass in that song. All right, Wayne, what do you have for your most underrated?
Yeah, so underrated,
bass?
I think, is tricky, but I guess for a casual fan, if he's not slapping, they don't recognize it.
Correct.
Right. And but for me, like I always loved Bassline Hot Water. I mean, not Hot Water, geez. Chinese Way.
Oh, that's a
nice sort of finger style bass line.
Challenging.
It makes me think of what's homeboy from Tower of Power, Rocco Prescia, like that, and he can play that really fast. I always love that bass line, and it's not something that I would show certain live performances to people who were friends and they know the hits.
Yeah.
Or they know Love Games or something like that. But then when they hear the Chinese Way, it's like, ooh, wow, I didn't know, it's almost like they expect him to be slapping on every song, and they kind of get thrilled by that particular bass line.
I'll tell you a funny story about that song when, just in terms of the bass line, there was a time, what would have been maybe 2000, 2001, I don't remember. I was our good friend Greg J-Mate. I was actually living with Greg for a few months.
Oh, cool.
And he's a killer bass player, Greg. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he loves hearing this podcast already. But
I recall.
But he would try to play the Chinese Way, and he could pretty much play anything.
Mm-hmm.
But he really, every time he played, he's like, this song is a killer. It's hard to play this song. And he goes, that Mark can sing and play this at the same time. It's just unbelievable.
That's funny.
Well, that, and I just saw a clip from the 90s Guarantee Tour when they're playing that at like 120 beats a minute, or I mean, just stashing away at it.
Yep.
Yeah, they always played it fast. Even in the early days when that came out, it was like crazy. And I always love that about bands. Like, you take your time and you write these songs and you arrange them and you record them, and then when you get live, it's all just super fast. And it seems really weird to like play it at the record tempo. Like
Right.
even if you're covering a song, it's like, ooh, this feels so slow.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's killer. Another one for me is True Believers.
Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
That's just a nice, simple groove. But you know what he's playing is really good. And another one for me, and I this would definitely not be for most people like underrated because of what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I always loved Dune Tune
Hmm.
because it's different, right? And when I first got that album, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is a wonderful song, blah, 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 blah. And my buddy Alandis, who's a bass player in our band, you know, he was like learning to play. And he's like, I think he's doing all this at one time. Like, because we just thought that was overdubbed, right? We were like, oh, yeah, okay, there's 2-3 parts. He's overdubbing that. And he was like, no, I'm figuring this out. I can play this not that fast yet, but this is doable live, like all at the same time. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, and that just gave me a hyper appreciation of that song. It's a beautiful song.
It is.
And it's all right, but it's just what he's playing there is really, really cool.
It is. And I can play a form of that song. And I can also play a form of True Believers, but you know, nowhere near what he could do it, you know, but it's fun to try. If you can almost like you fake it a little bit, it's actually kind of cool. It's fun to play. And just going back to True Believers, if you go to the studio version of that, I think it's the final chorus, crazy but true part. He is playing so fast in the bass line in that part. It's just killer.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Dune Tune. If you could only throw up one bass solo to represent Mark King, I would have to say the intro of Dune Tune.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is such classic Mark King. It just exudes who Mark King is and what he does.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, Mikey, who compare that to Stanley Clarke, that form of playing. I can't say I'm the biggest, like, I don't know the whole Stanley Clarke catalog, but there are a lot of people who make comparisons with that particular song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, it's a few Mark King licks that were very Stanley influenced, I believe. Some harmonics and stuff, but yeah.
For me, it would come down to either that or the Live at Wembley bass solo.
Oh my God.
You know, but Bob, what about you? What's yours?
All right. Well, I went some weird ones here. Freedom Someday I put on as an underrated bass line. It's all finger style, a lot of bent notes and slides, extremely melodic, challenging to play. I just think it's got all the hallmarks of Mark King, and it's not really the first thing you think of as for a bass line.
That's a great track too.
That song made my list for another reason, which I'll swing back around.
Okay, cool. Second song we've talked about on this podcast a bunch of times, and we should probably do a college course on it at some point. Good Man in the Storm.
We have a winner.
All fingerstyle again, but it's a different rhythm that runs completely counterpoint to the tempo of the melodies that he's singing. Again, really tasteful, intricate, and maybe not top of mind when you think of great Mark King bass lines. You think of that as a great Level 42 song. But there's something about that bass line. I'm like, it's always been my theory that they never played it live because it just was probably an enormous pain in the butt to play. But one day maybe we'll get an answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one for me, guys, was I don't know. This one I have an appreciation for. It's Overtime off the Guaranteed album. This is one that kind of interchanges from a slap line in the intro and the chorus, but a really kind of churning fingerstyle in the verses. it's another case where the bass line, I believe, is doubled with a synth bass throughout, but just serves the song really well. And it's another really great case where Mark can play anything but the root note that goes with the chords that are being played. It's really inventive. Kind of their 80s style groove of a bass line, but played in the 90s. So I don't think that gets a lot of play, no pun intended, for a Mark King bass line. So those are my three.
Yeah, all three of those, very groovy tracks. So yeah, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I always liked that song and the weird video that accompanied it.
Bob, what did you think? They did play "Good Man in a Storm" in 2018, the Eternity Tour.
Yep.
Yeah.
But before that, I don't think they had played it.
No, they had never played it live before, at least not publicly.
Right.
And that was the one tour that I saw where I actually did not know the set list in advance. So when that came out, well, because the intro on that is different. And boy, when they finished that intro and it went into it, I was like, oh, I got chills. I was like, oh my God, and actually hearing it live for the first time, it was incredible. And it sounded brilliant, of course. Yeah, I recorded that. Awesome. I recorded that. It's on my personal YouTube page. And yeah, brilliant.
It's brilliant. And I remember, again, they had never played it live, but I remember somebody posted a clip in some year preceding that Eternity Tour, and Mark King asked, well, what do you want to hear? And a bunch of people said, Good Man in a Storm. And he wound up starting the bass line, and then Mike started playing the keys, and he's like, no, that's it. It was
yeah, I remember that, seeing that. Yeah, they say that. Yes.
And I'm like, they're never going to play the song. I swear they're never going to play it. But finally it happened.
Yeah, I think wasn't it one of those tours where they like took votes for what folks would want to hear?
I think they've done that before, but I don't know if it was the Eternity Tour they did it for.
No, it was before Eternity for sure. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. It's like, okay, play some stuff you haven't heard, and
that Eternity Tour was really nice too, because they had the Chant Has Begun. The Chant Has Begun.
Was it
that
really
tour
though?
As well? It was great. It was an eternity since I'd heard it, so it was brilliant.
Yeah, not a favorite song of mine.
Not me either.
I mean, for what it's saying, yes. Musically, I never really cared for it. The whole chant thing,
I can hear our fans screaming at you guys right now. So
that's just my opinion.
No, that's cool.
I'd be wrong about every song we talked about because everyone's is going to be different, But definitely not in my top 10 songs. Put it that way.
Yeah, the live version off of Physical Presence itself of that song, though, is fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I kind of like the live version off Live at Wembley, the video. I think that's a good one, too.
Yeah.
There's just so much about that, guys.
I know.
That has a good bass line, too.
Yeah. I have a hard time hearing the bass line in that song. I know he's doing
live, like when Mikey just mentioned Live at Wembley, it just put it right in my head, and I'm like, yeah, I can hear it live.
Yeah. But between all the toms and the percussion, it's sometimes it's a little hard to separate it.
Yeah, that's.
So when is it like the Sunbed song for you, where you heard the album version and you were like, I don't
like it live either. I mean, I don't like that song.
Okay.
I mean, it's better. I mean, you can make out what they're doing better live, but again. There literally is not a song that if I just throw in the album, I'm not skipping any songs. But I'm not putting on the album to hear that song. If that makes sense.
I'm kind of the same, and this is getting ready for sacrilege here, guys. You mentioned the Chinese Way.
Yes.
I'm probably not putting that song on just to hear it either.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of people that feel that way, like, I don't really like that song. But I feel like because they play it so much, it's either they really like playing it or people like hearing it, and I think people like hearing it. I always like hearing it. Because it's like, how many shows that we can point out that like they would that's like one of the last songs that they play.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I totally understand that. So it's like, I'm not really knocking it, but every song can't be your favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that it's like, okay, this could be your favorite band or your favorite whatever, but it's like, I love films. I have a few favorite directors. There is not a director out there that I like every movie they've done.
Oh, of course,
so that's what it is. It's like, in a catalog of a ton of great songs, that's just not making my greatest list.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but again, it's not like, oh, here's that skip, I don't want to hear that. But I really like what the song's about. But the music is kind of, maybe it's just like the arrangement of it, with so much going on with all the different percussions in any event. So I was going to swing back to Freedom Someday, because I did listen to that recently within maybe like the last 3 weeks. And that was a song that I remember. Another one that stood out on the Return to Forever, Running in the Family album. Because I'm thinking of RITF and then Return to Forever RTF.
Right.
Because when they go into that change of that chorus, that groove, with what Phil's doing, with Mark, everybody, it's just killer. Like, I can just listen to that forever. And the way the song is structured too, because normally it's like, okay, you might open the song with a bit of the chorus, then you go verse, chorus, but it kind of goes a couple of choruses before that part kicks in.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, they're back to singing another, so it's like two different choruses, sort of, but when that part kicks in, man, that is amazing. That is just so lovely.
It's beautiful. It's the exact right word, when is lovely.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And you think about the recording of that. That was, I believe, at the stage where they had to start recording things for the next album, even though they were touring on World Machine.
Right,
and so
right.
They did Lessons in Love, Children's Day, and Freedom's Today kind of in the same session.
Right. They did, yeah.
And three completely different songs, like, where do they come up with this? And I think Freedom Someday was a bonus track. I don't even think it's on the album version of Running in the Family.
Yeah, that's funny, because I think of it as being on that album, because you got those B-sides or whatever, a bonus, so it's unless it was, because you remember how they used to do that thing, like, oh, you get the vinyl, you get the CD, or you get this cassette, but if you buy the CD, there's an extra track or bonus track, or they, record companies were super cool or annoying with, or I guess it was a nice money making thing, because you were always buying, like, I'm going to get the import because it had different songs on it, or different remixes or whatever. And that still goes on today, where it's like, oh, is there an extra track on just a Japanese release or whatever, great groove bits in those songs. So,
well, honestly, it's been a good conversation, guys. We haven't recorded in a while. I've enjoyed it. I look forward to doing more and getting the fans involved. As we said at the outset, we've really been appreciative for all the good feedback. Guys, thanks again. We'll do it again. And we want to thank everybody who tuned in. For Winston Walker, Mikey, She Cried Her Pain, I'm Bob Considine. We are leaving you now, but we'll wait till you return. See you next time, everybody.
All right, guys.
Good night.
Take care.
See you at the bar.